Alright, got a power steering pump on a Honda Accord. It's leaking and making a lot of noise, so we're going to get it replaced today. So let's get to work. Okay, this is what we're working on today. It's a 4-cylinder Honda Accord. This is a 2007. There's our power steering pump. You can see that it clearly indicates we have a leak based on all the grime and grit and stuff, and it's leaking on our alternator. So between that and all the noise it's making, that's why we're replacing it. Alright, this job can be a little messy, power steering fluid getting everywhere. So first thing I'm going to do, put a pan underneath there. We'll try to catch as much of it as we can. It tends to drool everywhere, and still, you know, no matter where we put that pan, it's going to miss it, but we'll do our best to catch what we can. Alright, I'm going to hit everything with a little bit of brake clean, see if I can clean some of this stuff up first before we go any further. Alright, a little bit cleaner there. You can see where our fluid level is. It's actually low, lower than where it should be. I'm gonna put my little pump in there, and we're gonna take a little bit of power steering fluid out. We just need to go below this upper return hose here. So we just need to bring this down a little bit. That way when we disconnect this hose, it's not spilling everywhere. Alright, there's my setup. This is used power steering fluid. And I have my pump here, and I only use it for power steering fluid. I'm just going to pump a little bit out just to get it down towards the bottom there. You can see how dark this fluid is. So we're going to be pulling all this old fluid out. We don't want to ruin our new pump. So it's below our hose there, so that's as far as I need to go. And you can see I put the towels here. We want to try to keep power steering fluid off of our components here, especially our belt, because it'll just eat it right up. Hopefully you can see I'm trying to get a shot of where I brought that level down to, just below that upper hose. Alright, now I'm just going to take some long needle nose pliers. Hopefully I can do it with you guys here. We're just going to grab this hose clamp and pull it back. Come on. We'll just pull it back like that. And now we can loosen our hose. See if I can do it with these. And just kind of twist that hose, and we should be able to pop it off here in a second. Alright, now that I got the clamp moved back, we should be able to just twist and see if we can pull this right off. And because we drained that below, it's not making a big huge mess, which is kind of nice. Now we're going to drain this power steering system like Honda recommends, but this is where the return hose is right here, as you can see, right where we disconnected it. Now if we just fired up the car right now, all the power steering fluid is going to just fly everywhere. So we need a hose or something to adapt to this so that we can bring it up out of the vehicle, and we'll put it right in our bucket there. So you can see I have several different hose configurations, and you're going to need something similar so that you don't make a mess. Now the diameter of that connection down there is right there. So just a little over 4/10 of an inch. So that's what we need to do, or we need to be in that range in order to connect to this hose over here. So this end right here is very close to what we need, and so is this one. That's why it's adapted onto this larger hose. This is a fuel line. We could use either one. I think I'll go with this one today. Alright, I can't really film it, it's pretty difficult, but I'm just going to take this hose, shove it down in there, and then I'm going to put the clamp back up to kind of help it seal a little bit. It doesn't need to be an absolute perfect seal. We just need to get most of the fluid out into our bucket instead of all inside the interior of the engine here. Okay, you can see that's how I adapted it. Just stuck it down. It's probably right into about right there. Got to put the clamp back up on there. And I also did put a hose. I just attached it right to the barb right there. And it's just going over here. It's just clamped off. That's so we don't suck any debris or anything in there. We just want to make sure that these hoses don't come in contact with any drive belts, because we're going to fire up the vehicle. And that return line, you can see it's just clipped onto a bucket down there. Alright, we'll just fire up the car, we'll let it idle, and we'll let our fluid start draining into our bucket, and then we'll turn it lock to lock and then back to center just to kind of clear any of the remaining fluid out. turn it lock to lock. Alright, I turned it. It's a lot harder to steer now because there's not much fluid in there. We'll let a little more come out and then I'll shut it off. And you can definitely see that that old fluid is pretty nasty. We don't want that running through our new pump. Alright, I hit it with some more brake clean. Now I'll just kind of dry it off. Try to keep this place clean as possible. When you're using a lot of brake clean, it's a good idea to have some ventilation. Probably can't hear that because the air is blowing on it, but that pulls a lot of fresh air from the outside, just vents it right out. So definitely a good idea to do something like that. Alright, we'll just remove these hoses. And we'll pull this one off the reservoir. Alright, now we got to get the belt off. So we can use a long 14mm wrench like this. We'll put it right on the tensioner. We can just loosen it like that, nice and easy, and then pop it off. I can't do it and hold the camera, but you can see that the belt is loose. We'll just pop it off. Alright, I pinned the belt just up out of the way, but I'm leaving it in place. You can remove it completely if you like, but keep power steering fluid off of it. If yours has been continually soaked in power steering because this had a good leak, well then you're going to want to replace it. But this belt is fairly new, so we're going to leave it. Alright, I put some rags in place in case any more fluid drips out, and we'll just crack these three 10mm loose. I'll crack that one. And this one. There. Now they're all loose. Alright, with them cracked loose, usually we can just pull them out. Yours might be stuck in there and they may take some work to get out. And we'll see if we can pop this up and out. Oh yeah, that was easy. Just have plenty of rags for this job. Now we just need to hold this up out of the way. Let's see what I have here. We can use an old Harbor Freight glove so we don't drip anything anywhere. And I think I'll just bungee it over here. And we just need to keep it elevated so it doesn't drip and up out of our way. That's all I did. And we should be able to pop this bolt out also. Now you can just disconnect the hose right here if you want, but typically most power steering pumps don't come with this attachment, so you got to take it off anyway, so it's easier just to take it off and leave this intact. Now we should be able to pop this out also. Now there is an O-ring we have to overcome. It's right there. And I can just take our whole reservoir out and we can clean it up. I put a little bit of packing tape to try to keep the fluid in there when we take it off. It's not going to help, but it makes me feel better. Now we just got to get the two bolts that are holding it on. Now I'm going to use a 12mm socket, a 3-inch extension, and a little bit longer flex head ratchet, and we're going to go in and get that bolt right there, and where's the other one, and we got to get that one right there, and with the extension it should get us around this pulley so we can get it off. Alright, we'll pop this one free first. Sometimes they can be a little tight, and we should be able to reach under here and get the other one. And you can see now it's loose. Alright, now we'll just switch to the old battery powered ratchet. We'll just loosen that up. Try not to tip it so it doesn't drain everywhere. And we'll get the top one. I don't want to hit that. I'll pull that extension off. Alright, there's the one bolt. Now we'll just try to hold this in position and get the other one out. And there that is, and there's our power steering pump. Now these bolts are the same on each side, but it's a good habit to get into. Don't mix the bolts up, just try to keep them in their same location. Okay, I put the bolts back in so we don't lose them, and I took this over to my bucket. I just lifted the tape, dumped the power steering out, and I spun the pulley to force any fluid that was in there out. That way when we move this around or work with it to get this pulley off, we're not dumping power steering fluid everywhere. Okay, I mounted the old pump in a vise here, and now we just got to get this 19mm nut off. Now with an impact, usually I can just put it on there and zip it right off. If you don't have an impact, you're going to have to put something in here to stop this from spinning while you break this off. And same thing when you put it back on, you're going to have to be careful with the new pump. The old one, who cares if we break it, but the new one, we certainly don't want to break it. But we got to get this off so we can get this off. Alright, we'll see if the 3/8 inch Milwaukee can break it free. No problem. And we'll see if we need a pulley or if it comes off. We might need a pulley. It's definitely on there. Alright, we'll use this puller right here, see if we can't pop that off. This thing is designed for windshield wiper arms, but we should be able to knock that free too. We'll just get it in place. Tighten it up. Oh, we didn't even need a puller. It popped, it came off. We probably could have hammered it too, but I try not to do that because I don't want to mess up the splines. But she came off alright. These are definitely handy to have around the shop. Definitely recommend them. Pulling windshield wipers or little things like this. Comes with a couple different sizes, as you can see. Although we didn't need it today, these small ones would have been perfect. These larger ones would have been too big. Alright, here's the power steering pump I'm going to put in today. As you can see, this one's new. It's from AutoZone, a Duralast. There's the part number. I typically like, OE parts from Honda, but these things are pretty expensive from Honda. We got to save some money, so this is what we're going with. I try to shy away from rebuilt power steering pumps, that's for sure. And of course, always check your new part against your old part. Make sure they're the same. And we need to replace those O-rings in the power steering line. So this thing comes with new O-rings, so that's nice. And it also comes with instructions that are soaked in power steering fluid. And as you can see, our new one looks just like our old one. And so we should be good to go. Even though AutoZone tried to sell me a different part. They told me this was not the right one and wanted to sell me another one, and I wouldn't let them. So hopefully I was right and they were wrong. Oh, and while I'm thinking of it, it's a good idea. Let's keep these plugs in place so we don't introduce any foreign objects into this thing and ruin our brand new pump. Alright, now we can take our new power steering pump, take our old pulley, we can set it into place and make sure it drops all the way down like that. That way it's on the splines. And then we just got to get this thing torqued down. This is 47 foot-pounds, so we got to kind of snug it up. Alright, and like I said, these are torqued to 47 foot-pounds, and we could use the torque wrench if we want, but it's kind of difficult, especially off the vehicle, to get this thing torqued properly. So you got to do your best judgment to get it to 47. Now once it's in the vehicle, we could probably try again, but until then this thing just wants to fly and spin all over the place. Okay, now I'm going to take this over to my bucket with the old fluid, and I'll probably just hose it off with some brake cleaner, probably remove this hose and get it as clean as I can. Alright, it's not like brand new, but it's much cleaner than it was. All the garbage that was down there I got out, and as well as the little bit of the old fluid that was sitting at the bottom, and our connector right here where the O-ring is going to go is nice and clean. Okay, we'll take our new pump, we'll set it back into place. As you can see, I already pulled the bolts out, got them handy, so we can just get these things started by hand. We always want to get these things started by hand. Alright, now we can take our electric tools and we can help ourselves out a bit. And we can bring them up to snug, and we always want to make sure, we got to look at our gap, make sure everything's squared away. Yeah, we definitely want to look at our mating surfaces right there, and where's the other one? Right here. Make sure they're nice and flush. We shouldn't have any gaps, and we certainly don't want to be cockeyed, otherwise our belt is not going to be happy. Alright, now both of these bolts are 16 foot-pounds, so we should be able to get our torque wrench in here and get these torqued properly. Come on. Doesn't take much to hit 16. Alright, we'll take our reservoir, and it just slides in and out on this bracket. We'll just pop it down into place, and then this should line up right where it's supposed to go. And we'll just go ahead and, well, I'll show you, but we'll reconnect that hose. Okay, you can see I put the hose back on. Now notice the marks where the clamp goes. It's always a good idea. Put the clamp on exactly like it was before. So I'm just going to slide that clamp on and get it right back in the grooves where it was laying before. That way it'll seal properly. Alright, clamps back in place, good to go. Alright, now to get those power steering lines on, we got to replace these O-rings. Now these are our new ones, and we're going to coat them in Honda power steering fluid. I don't recommend using any other power steering fluid. So we're going to coat these O-rings and get them on. Alright, with clean gloves, we'll see if we can't put this over the top here. And we try not to roll O-rings. Try to just set them in place like that. And we can pop this plug out. Make sure it's clean. It looks clean. And then we can kind of just pop it in. Well, let me show you what it looks like. Alright, you can see how that O-ring sits just like that. And we'll just kind of press it into place. It'll be a snug fit. You gotta just pop it straight down, pop it straight into place. I don't want to pull it out and show you again, but with a little bit of force we got to overcome that O-ring and just get it right down. And we can reinstall the bolt right here, and this should be 8 foot-pounds or 96 inch-pounds if my math is correct for a 1/4 inch. Okay, seeing as I have it, I'll show you how to do it properly. Now this is 96 inch-pounds because I'm using a 1/4 inch, so don't go tagging this down to 96 foot-pounds or you'll be buying a new power steering pump. So 96 inch-pounds is the same as 8 foot-pounds, and so we'll go ahead and torque it. Alright, I pulled the glove off so you can see it. We just got to gently go in here with a pick and get under here and pull this O-ring off. Or break it. It was pretty brittle, so this was going to cause a leak at any point or any time now. Alright, with a nice clean mating surface and clean gloves, we'll try to get this O-ring on here. This one's a little more difficult. Alright, these aftermarket ones like to fight you a little bit, but I got that O-ring on. And just like the other one, we want to make sure there's a little bit of clean power steering fluid on there. There was already some on there, but just to ease installation, I want a little bit extra on that outside of that O-ring as we slide it on. Okay, I popped the cover off, so now we can set it down into place. And just like before, we just got to overcome the pressure of that O-ring and snap it down into place. And these are also 8 foot-pounds. Or as we said before, 96 inch-pounds. Now the OE O-rings are different part numbers. As you can see here, they're different sizes. The aftermarket ones, they gave me the exact same size. I made it work. If they leak, I'll have to go down to Honda and buy the original ones and put them in. It's not too difficult of a job to pop them in, but in case you're wondering about the sizes, that's what goes on. The aftermarket one, they feel, hey, you can just give you one size fits all. Alright, as you saw, I got the belt back on. Now, always make sure, double check, make sure it's on all the pulleys properly. You can see we're good to go. I have a whole video on doing this belt. If you're interested, I'll leave it in the description. Alright, now we'll go ahead and refill our power steering reservoir. And like I said, always Honda power steering fluid only. And we need to have several bottles on hand to make sure we have enough. Alright, it's up to the full line. So what I'm going to do is start it, let it pull that into the system, then I'll probably shut it off and top it off again. And we'll keep doing that until we get it full and it doesn't look like it's dropping immediately. Okay, hopefully you can see we're topped all the way up to the upper level with clean power steering fluid. Now we'll just fire the car up and it's going to drop it. But what we don't want to do, we don't want to run our new pump dry. So as soon as it goes down, we're going to have to fill it back up. Alright, sorry I didn't film it, but I turned the vehicle on. I ran it for about 5-6 seconds and turned it off and came out, and I wanted to see where it dropped, and you can see we dropped quite a bit. And so now we just need to fill it back up to our upper line, because like I said, we don't want to run this dry. Alright, I'm back topped off. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to fire it up for 5 or 6 seconds, nothing more than an idle. I'm not turning the steering wheel. Shut it off, and I'm going to see where my level is. And I should mention, and I did this already, before you fire that car up for the first time, double check your work. Make sure that belt's on and squared away. Make sure everything's tight, all of our connections. Make sure all the tools are removed. Put your cap back on the reservoir. We don't want to damage anything when firing it up. We're trying to fix this thing. And don't forget to pull that pan from underneath. We don't want to run that thing over. Alright, let's see where we're at. You can see we dropped again to a little bit below our lower mark. We're going to top it off again. I like doing this procedure rather than just trying to run it and dump fluid in, because you're sucking air in and we don't want to run this pump or the rack dry. And there's already air in the system, so we want to limit any possible damage we do. So slower is better than faster. And just like before, we want to top this off to the upper level. The upper line, I should say. Right there. And it's not uncommon to see bubbles, just like you can see right in there right now. We had a lot of air in the system. Well, heck, the whole thing was full of air. So we're going to have some bubbles until it settles down. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to turn the vehicle on, run it for 5 or 6 seconds, and shut it off and see where it's at. And I'm not going to leave my flashlight in there. And as you can see, we dropped again to about the lower line. I'm going to do the same thing. Top it off, fire it up. Okay, topped it off, turned it on, ran it for about 10 seconds and shut it off. And our fluid level stayed the same. It stayed right at the top line. So that's a good sign. So now I'm going to fire it up and we're going to go lock to lock and then back to center. And then we're going to turn it off and then check it. Okay, I fired it up. I turned it all the way to the right. As soon as it stops, then I go all the way to the left. And as soon as it stops, I come back to center. Now, I don't hold it all the way right and I don't hold it all the way left. As soon as it hits it, I go back the other way. So I did that, and you can see we dropped just a hair, just a little bit. So we'll top it off and do that one more time, and then I think we're good. And hopefully you can see, after turning it lock to lock, our fluid level stayed exactly at the upper level. So I believe this car is good to go. Alright, I'll probably do that a couple more times. Just turn it on, lock to lock, and check the levels. and then I'll take it for a test drive and make sure everything's okay. And I definitely recommend having at least 3, maybe even 4 bottles of Honda power steering fluid. That's what you're going to need for a job like this. I buy the stuff by the case, so I wasn't worried about having enough, but you definitely want to have enough of this stuff on hand before you start a job like this. Now I'm confident that my impact hammered it home to at least 47 foot-pounds, but we can double check our torque once it's on the car like this. It's a little easier, and we can verify it. All we got to do, we just take a little Harbor Freight throwdown screwdriver. You can see I have it pinned under there, so we'll just hold it like this, put the torque wrench on there, and verify the torque is at least 47 foot-pounds. Alright, set to 47. You can see we're good. I'm confident that it's good. And I always recommend, after doing a job like this, keep double checking that fluid level over the next couple driving sessions, and look for any leaks in the hoses, the lines, and the pump itself. Well, there you go. That's how I replaced the power steering pump and the fluid on these Accords. And as always, if the video helped you out and you liked it, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Thanks for watching.